Practice, a podcast from Thoughtworks where we share stories of practical approaches to becoming a modern digital business. I'm your host, Kimberly Boyd, and I'm here live at Paradigm Shift with one of our incredible speakers, Darren Smith, Chief Technology Officer at MYOB. If you're not familiar with MYOB, they're a business management platform providing solutions in finance and supply chain, employee, and project management. And fun fact, they were Australia's first unicorn. Darren has made the journey to join us here in LA all the way from Sydney, Australia. We get him fresh off the plane. So we're excited to dive in and have a conversation today about Darren's leadership journey and what's brought him to our Paradigm Shift stage today. So Darren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe we can just kick off and you can tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of a brief overview of what your leadership journey has been so far.
Sure. Well, as you said, I've been at CTO at MYOB for the last 3 years. Before that, I spent a lot of time as a consultant at a company called Thoughtworks.
We might have heard of them.
Yes. And where I really started out was as a developer, from university, grad developer working on kind of a mainframe type of system called Tandem. It's high availability, that kind of stuff. And within those first few years, I got to ride the kind of .com boom in the late 90s, got to learn Java and really even kind of travel around the world working in different places. And I think for me, as part of the leadership journey that I saw early days, people were always being pushed forward into new roles, expanding. If you had any talent or any capability, it was like you're a leader kind of thing. And so I found early on for me in my whole journey that I kept on getting pushed into leadership roles, even though I didn't think I was quite ready for it at that time. And I think that stuck with me for a while. I think that stuck with me through, probably up until the last couple of weeks even. What that meant for me was I probably get pushed into different roles of leading a team through to working with a friend of mine who brought me in to lead the delivery organization in a small little startup business as well, through to kind of coming back and forth between being an individual contributor back into leadership roles until I kind of really felt comfortable in my own skin. When I look back at that journey myself, I think about how I was kind of lucky in terms of being in the right place at the right time, that there was always something that was opening up. And it wasn't something that I sought, but a lot of times I got pulled into those kinds of roles. And I think it's only on reflection that I realized that people would give me opportunity. It wasn't just kind of all luck. It was a lot of people around me that supported.
I'm sure it wasn't all
too.
luck. It was largely based on their experience working with you and your capability. Well, one of the things I want to dive back into is you mentioned there was a couple instances that, you got pushed into roles that maybe you didn't feel ready for at the time. And it sounds like you had a couple of those experiences in your career. How did you kind of adjust and kind of take on the role and assume the leadership? Like, are there any reflections that now that you've done this a couple times that you've said, wow, this is, probably something I'm going to take with me to whatever comes next?
Look, I think early days, I had huge imposter syndrome. So I probably first thing I did was just pick up any book that I could just to kind of learn the craft. And while they were helpful, they didn't necessarily help me in that moment. I think it was until I took that lead role where I was working with a friend of mine and understanding the kind of the switch from being an individual contributor, where I could see at the end of the day, writing a whole bunch of code, you knew how productive you were. You could see it. You could stare at it and kind of start to say, I've done something. Moving into a leadership role, you start to kind of feel at the end of the day, all I've done is spend time in meetings. And that was a real important kind of shift for me to kind of learn and start to value the change in what I was doing. The kind of the coping mechanism that I developed at that time was starting to think not about the things that I needed to do today, but the seeds I needed to sow, because a lot of the things that you do really don't pay off for days, weeks, months. And I think that was a really important thing for me. And it actually gave me a chance. I think at the end of that role, I kind of I stepped back out of that, went back just to being a developer for a while. And really, as I then moved back into leadership roles and really kind of set me on the path that I am on today, I was able to use that kind of moment and kind of reset myself and start again, to start to say, okay, I'm valuing this. I can understand what I'm doing. But I think that was one of the most important times for me, was really understanding that I had to shift my mode, have to value the work that I was doing, but in a different way. And that was probably the most, one of the most important leadership lessons I learned.
Yeah, there's value comes in many different forms, right? And it looks a little different for every role. Well, I think we all have experiences that have an impact or really resonate with us in our career journeys. Can you talk to any experiences that you've had in your leadership journey that have had that significant impact on you and kind of have influenced how you approach being a leader?
But I would say some of the moments that kind of stand out to me was, I remember once being on a client site, doing some work, installing a system back in the times that you still had to install things in their data center or on their servers. Things were going wrong with the system, and it took me a while. It was taking me ages to kind of work out what was going wrong with this. And I was getting a call from my manager at the time, reaching out to me and starting, trying to just get hold of me, work out what's going on, what's taking so long, and all that. And I just wanted to be in the moment. I really wanted to focus on what I was doing, and I was kind of a little bit embarrassed that I couldn't fix this thing. Right? It wasn't a trivial thing, but I always kind of had that sense that I always should be able to fix anything. And it wasn't until he got through to me that he kind of taught me a valuable lesson. He said that you've got to listen, you've got to pick up the phone, you've got to be available. Not because he was checking on me to see if I was doing a good job or not, but he was checking on me to see if he could help. And I can't help you if you won't talk to me. And I think that was one of the most valuable things I learned as a leader, that you need to kind of be able to reach out, be there in that moment when you start to work with the people that you're working with. Later on, I kind of realized that it's kind of like being a parent. I've got quite a few children now, but and so I've learned a lot of leadership lessons there too. But I think that when you think about it, being a leader is a lot like being a parent for a toddler. One of the things that having little kids did for me was teach me risk management. When you think about it, every time that a child's walking past you and picked up something, you're doing like a blink risk management assessment at that
What
moment.
are they going to do with that? What are the possible permutations?
Exactly. And should I take it off? Should I take that off them? Are they going to break it? Are they going to hurt themselves? Are they going to cry? Yeah. And you're weighing up, is it worth taking off it because it's going to do more damage? Or is there a learning opportunity? Those kinds of things. And I think that that's another big role of the leader, is starting to kind of recognize when you can step in with that into each situation. One, to let someone learn and grow by themselves, and others where it's a little bit more risky, that you want to step in and help them learn and grow together with you. And so I think those are some of the more kind of valuable lessons that you learn with time, is that the role is kind of enabling others to do their role better, not kind of driving them to a better outcome, but you're kind of giving them the tools that they need to be better today and into the future.
Yeah, helping remove the roadblocks from those team members. Well, I really like the point that you made about being a leader also requires being able and being comfortable to ask for help yourself. Because I feel like a lot of times people probably feel like, well, I'm a leader, I must have all the answers. And that's never going to be the case. So I think that's a really important point to, reinforce with our team members, our peers, our colleagues, that, no one has the exact right answer. And as we're all striving to be leaders, we should all be striving to be open for that feedback. And I think, tied to that point, I know that your paradigm shift talk really emphasizes the significance of authenticity and, kind of that self-awareness at the heart of what you're building for the customer. But I think we're continuing to see and hear a lot about the role of authenticity when it comes to leadership. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you view authenticity playing a really pivotal role in building teams.
Well, for me, and what I talk about in this context is not just about your values and who you are. It's actually what you do, and what you do time and time again. I think that's a big thing in authenticity, and in terms of being able to deliver to your customers, to your team, to the people around you. I think that being authentic means that you're clear on what you're willing to do, for those that are asking, and not always just kind of bending to just the whims of others because that's what they want and because you're trying to be employee led or customer centric. Those things are important, but they're in the context of what you can truly follow through and execute on. It's kind of keeps on peeling that onion back in a sense, and at the heart of that is trust. Building out a strong team is really about creating an environment where you trust each other. One of the tricks of trust, though, and I've seen it play out time and time again, is when people start to think that trust is something is kind of like, you should just trust me to be left alone and to do my job. And I don't think that's the right kind of thing. Trust is not something that you want to draw down on. It's something you want to keep on replenishing. And I think that's what authenticity is about being clear, being honest, having that follow through, being consistent. Those are the kinds of things I think that as a leader or as just any contributor to a team really needs to kind of bring with them to be able to build the trust to be a highly performing team overall.
I really like the idea of refilling or continuing to fill that trust pot and not drawing down on it, like you said. You mentioned that can be a challenge when you're really striving to be that authentic leader between getting pulled for the team, getting pulled towards the customer, while you're trying to kind of maintain that authentic path that you're on. How do you kind of strike that balance between seizing opportunities and kind of maintaining that authentic path? Are there strategies or kind of ways of working that you apply to help you do that?
Yeah, I think in the first instance, being authentic doesn't mean being stagnant and just being the same thing forever. I think you did need to have growth, you do need to have ambition, and it's kind of following through on those things that are important. In the talk, I talk about kind of three things you need to think about around authenticity. First is kind of actuality. What is going on around you? What is the reality around you? And what's informing, what's driving you to the next thing? The next is ambition. And the idea of ambition there being that you can see an opportunity that customers asking you for something, there's an opportunity to develop and to grow, or there's the your own sense that you want to kind of go out there and do something different. Those are all good things. And then I think it then comes down to having an authentic response. What is the thing that I'm going to kind of follow through on? What that means for me is, each of those things, it's almost kind of a continual loop that you keep on kind of feeding back through and starting to understand what's important, and then I think as you start to engage with your customers and as your staff and with the people around you, you start to kind of have those frank conversations. I think that when I've had my biggest regrets in losing an opportunity or kind of saying the wrong kind of things, and I will get this wrong quite often, is that it's when I've been inauthentic or when I've bent to someone else's desire and I've not been true to my values that I kind of walk away and start to say, I should have stuck my guns there because I lost out the opportunity anyway, and I missed the opportunity to be authentic with someone else. And so I think it's really kind of coming back there and just kind of giving yourself permission to do those kinds of things. And I think that's part of the reason why I actually want to have talk about this so much, is it's not just about what I do, and it's not just about a process. It's actually about kind of giving people permission. And I think that's something that we forget to do, right? We forget to be honest. We forget to be clear. We forget to be consistent because we're being told we've got to be all these other things too. And I think that's really the heart of the message.
I think that's a great point. That was really what was kind of resonating with me with what you were just saying is, I think people, when there's challenging situations or crises, or they perhaps want to speak up. They don't like the direction that something's going, but they feel like they can't. And then they have those regrets. But if you're reframing that around, well, I really need to be authentic, maybe that gives people more kind of purchase and freedom to, act in that way so they don't have those regrets about at least how they showed up and led. So Darren, we've talked, a bit about your leadership journey and some of the things you've kind of learned along the way and really the big role that authenticity plays for you as a leader. When you're thinking kind of longer term and what's next and perhaps reflecting back on your career someday, what is the vision and legacy that you individually kind of hope to leave as a leader?
I'm not sure I really have anything, kind of huge or anything specific about me. I think that it's probably two things. One is that idea that we've got to kind of be respectful for each other. I think that when I have lent into leadership roles, and when I've kind of even when I've been in a just an individual contributor role, one of the things that's really kind of hit me at the core is when I feel that there's a lack of respect in a workplace, amongst a team, and others. And so a big part of what I hope that the legacy I leave behind me is not about anyone remembering my name or saying I've done this amazing thing or not. It's just that I've created a culture of respect, and that I've contributed to others being respectful to each other. It's amazing. Like, I'm not someone who gets overly emotional about things, and that's the one thing I do when I see a lack of respect around me. That is something that just really kind of really drives me to action. And so I think that when I think about the legacy, it's really about that. It's really about creating that moment for others, that, and probably not messing stuff up for the next person to come along. Yeah.
Leave the place better than you found it, and then creating an environment where people can feel great. I think that's a pretty great thing to aspire to. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Darren, and joining us at Paradigm Shift, making the trip from Australia. We really do appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Pragmatism in Practice. If you'd like to listen to similar podcasts, please visit us at thoughtworks.com/podcast. Or if you enjoyed the show, help spread the word by rating us on your preferred podcast platform.